Welcome back to Coffee Talk with Brandy. I'm here with my good friend Kathleen, who flew in from Arizona to be part of the show. She's going to help us lead conversations that will increase our emotional intelligence skills and help us becoming self-aware. Hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. This is so much fun.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you here. So now you have your warm tea. We've had to warm it up several times.
It is cold here.
Yeah.
Arizona, so
It is cold, and we made do just because there were some circumstances, and so I relocated to my garage just for a while we're here. So it is a little bit cold. We do have a heater, and we've tried to figure out lighting and all of that good stuff. We ate some lunch.
I call this the fridge because it's about as cold as a refrigerator.
Right? It's cold here.
It is cold.
Yeah, and we're trying to figure out if this microphone works and making sure I don't make it noisy and stuff.
But... Well, thanks. Thanks for having me again. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're here. So, let's learn a little bit more about you, and we know a little bit already, but tell me a little bit about what was it that helped you to start turning inwards, becoming self-aware?
That's a great question. And I love that you ask that. This was something that you and I had talked about a little bit earlier about refraining from criticism, shifting blame, or looking outward, right? Because you and I've talked about it. Right now we're going to share, issues that we've come across. And yeah, they involve people and relationships. And the issue isn't about other people. It's about looking inward. And so that was something that happened to me. It would actually involve the two of us. Yeah. And you came down to Phoenix for a conference, and it was several years ago. And we were in the lobby of the hotel that you were staying at. And at that time, I was struggling in my marriage, just really, really was venting and venting and venting. Of course, my focus was on my husband at the time and talking about what he was doing or what he wasn't doing, or all these other issues. And you said, it was almost kind of like, okay, I get that you're talking about him. I get, right? Okay. But what is it that you want? And I look and I remember what? No. I understand you're talking about him, but what about you? What is it that you want? And you said it a few times because I didn't understand. I couldn't comprehend. What do I want? What? No. I'm talking about all my problems and all my issues and what's going on with the marriage and what's wrong. And separate from that is to be able to put the mirror on yourself and ask, what is it that you want? And I realized at that point, I don't know, because I've never been asked. Mm-hmm. So I could comprehend the question because it was in English. Yeah. And I know English. But at the same token, you're right, on an emotional level, I couldn't understand what it was that you were asking of me. So to start thinking about, well, what do I want, enabled me to start focusing inward rather than outward.
Yeah.
So my question then to you is where'd you learn to ask that? I was so taken aback. I'm like, how did you know to ask that?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I was at a mental health conference at work. I'm a certified peer support specialist, and there's so many trainings that we go through as a peer support specialist. They are newer to the field in mental health per se. Okay. I mean, peers have always been around, but the mental health aspect of peer support is up and coming, and they're paid positions, which is phenomenal because we all need somebody who understands what we're going through. So part of it is going through a lot of those trainings, learning how to be with people and to listen. And the other part is my fascination for psychology and reading is just, I love it. I want to constantly just learn because it helps me to learn about myself, right? Knowing who we are is so important. And at one point I didn't know that question the answer to that question either. What do I want? Nobody had ever asked me that. It was always about this surface relationship that I was taught to be in.
Right.
With you just get married, have babies, live at home, all that stuff. So there was that surface level. And then on the peer support level, you start to dig deeper. And then it's also part of the fact that I had been going to therapy for a long time. And so, being with a therapist who can ask questions like that is phenomenal.
Mhm.
And what I love about questions in general, and what I've learned
Mhm.
in psychology, and why that question in particular is so
Right.
important, our brains love questions. Our brains love to
Mm.
find the answers to questions.
Mhm.
So if somebody asks you a question, your brain will search and search and search for the answer because it wants to figure it out. So, I mean, part of like learning about ourselves is really learning how to ask ourselves questions
Mhm.
to move forward from where we're at. So that's kind of where that came from.
And that's exactly what I needed at that time, right? To move forward from where I was at. Otherwise, right? You get stuck. It doesn't have to be a marriage. It can be a friendship, it can be a relationship with a parent, a colleague, work relationship, sibling, where you get to a point where you're frustrated and you don't know what to do or how to work through the challenges that come with having a relationship with this person, whoever it is. But knowing you don't get to change anybody. You
Yep.
don't get to change, and you don't go to marriage counseling to change your spouse.
Yeah.
That's not ever going to happen. That's not the purpose. And I'm like, hey, and if you think that is, then you have to ask, well, what is it that you want? If you want to be with somebody that's XYZ and you have to change the person that you're with in order to get that, then you really need to look inward and question what it is that you want. Again, it goes back to what you asked. Wait a second, am I asking something from somebody who really can't give that to me? But to start with yourself and to start with what it is that you want and knowing. And I think that was the other thing was that you said, hey, it's okay to not know. It's okay to not know. And I didn't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the fact that you were willing to ask the question gave me pause to start thinking about how I wanted to answer that.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have an answer at that time.
Yeah, it's so interesting because you say, we don't go to therapy to change the other person. And I think that's so valid, but we don't often know that. I had
I
no
know.
idea.
Exactly.
Right?
Mhm.
What I've learned
Right.
in my years of doing my own therapy,
Mhm.
healing a lot of my own trauma, is that when
Mhm.
I was younger, I did look at other people, especially guys, oh, well, they just need more love. They just need
Right.
me to be tender.
Right.
And as you were
Mhm.
saying, about looking within, what I learned
Mhm.
about that mind frame is that's what I needed. I needed to heal.
Right.
That was about me. But I was
Self-projecting. I knew it.
I was
Yes.
projecting what I needed onto them.
Yes.
And
Right.
I didn't know that at the time.
No.
I just didn't. But I've learned it now.
Right.
And it's something we can share to any
Mhm.
viewer out there
Right.
who, it's just at that point, maybe like you want to become a little more self-aware, or maybe you're just on that hamster wheel turning around and around, and
Right.
you're just like, what the freak am I doing? Why is my life continuing to be in this cycle? Whether it's
Right.
within a marriage, whether it's in a job, whether it's,
Right.
I don't know, whatever, that
Yeah.
perpetuating like
Mhm.
habits that we
Mhm.
have.
Mhm.
Like becoming self-aware is really just asking those questions again, because
is.
our brain loves to find the answer.
All right. So because you like questions, I'm going to ask you another question. How is it that we get ourselves into relationships where we don't ask questions, or questions are not okay to ask? Where you, like you said, hey, I've just been taught this way. I'm just going to accept it. I don't like it, but I just have to put up with it because, and I've done this too.
Yeah.
It's just how it is. This is just how it is. It's just how it is. It's just how it's going to be, rather than asking questions. Why? What's up with that?
Well, from my own perspective and
Right.
my own lived experience, number one, the brain loves familiarity. We do what is familiar.
Mhm.
That's just psychology 101. We constantly do what's familiar. And if you haven't been taught to critically think, if you've just been taught, a lot of us as children,
it goes back to childhood.
It does. Did you grow up in an environment where curiosity was just loved, right? Or was curiosity shut down?
True.
Or all of those things. So when we're at the, learning in such a young age and taking in all of our environment, if we have an environment that shuts us down from thinking, from even contemplating the answers of something that's going on, we don't hone those skills.
That's true.
Critical thinking is a skill set. Emotional intelligence is a skill set. But the beautiful thing is we can build that. We can create more
absolutely.
skills.
Yeah.
Like that's a beautiful thing. I mean, I am emotionally intelligent at this point, and maybe I've always had like some kind of emotional intelligence, but all of this is built because I've been intentionally doing it. I've been reading books, whether it's books on body language or understanding
Yeah.
people, or really it comes down to that same thing you were just talking about,
Right.
looking within.
Well, and to your point is it's a learned behavior.
Yeah.
It's not automatic. It isn't something that you're born with, because everything that you talked about, I'm like, I remember I knew at a young age, or, well, growing up, right? Was maybe not at a young age. I knew by the time I was in my 20s that I was emotionally detached. Would I have recognized it at that age? Probably not. But I knew I was, not emotionally connected. I didn't like to hug people, for example. And that was something, I just wasn't a touchy-feely type person. And so, but knowing that, hey, what type of relationships do I want to have moving forward? I had to learn exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that was just given to me.
Right? All of these things are learning.
Yeah.
Learning. And it's okay to continue learning.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, learning is endless.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, and it's like, I wish, and here in Oregon, they're really shifting it a little bit. They are starting to teach emotional intelligence in classrooms.
School?
Yes, there's a
Right.
program, Roots of Empathy is the name of it. And they're starting off with the littles, and their whole role is bringing in, and I don't know, because it's COVID, right? So I'm not sure where it's at, but when I worked in the field, they, once a month, they would bring in a baby, and the children would learn that the baby would cry, and like all of these things, and they would teach these children how to have empathy for the child.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I think that's helpful. And I know, like, I used to teach parents a collaborative problem-solving model, right? And I think one of the hardest things I had to teach to adults was to learn empathy. And empathy is so huge in emotional intelligence because it's helping us to feel with people. But if you've been taught to block your emotions and feelings, it can be really hard to grasp that empathy. And so for adults, it was really hard when I'm working alongside parents.
Did they get defensive? What was the reaction?
They didn't quite understand at first.
So it's like when you asked me, what do you want?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Yes.
Okay.
But the beautiful thing was, and what I loved, is that I was allowed to walk alongside of my families and the people I was working with. And so in helping them to, like, you could teach people and tell people words of empathy, but really what was the most beneficial was spending time with people to listen, to validate how they felt, instead of diminishing what they felt. Right. And so that role modeling is so key in helping us move forward in anywhere, in a culture, with empathy and learning how to be with each other and not try to fix everything, right?
Right.
It's hard. I'm kind of going to go back to a story real fast about learning to be in tune with ourselves, right?
Okay.
And it's kind of a funny story. Well, I mean, I think it's funny. And I throw myself under the bus because it was kind of like, when we can be honest with our own behavior, that is when we'll see a lot of growth. And it can be really uncomfortable. You may not want to acknowledge your behavior. And if you don't, that's okay. But for anybody out there listening who's kind of in that ready mode to move forward in life and not just live surface, listen carefully. Because when we can be honest with our own behaviors, we start to understand the whys of what we do. Because any behavior, any challenging behavior, is a sign of an unmet need. So take, for instance, I've been in the dating world for a long time, still single, 11 years. And here's where I throw myself under the bus. And I would tell my families, I'm like, look, I had to be honest with myself, because there were times where I would intentionally, accidentally message a guy, right? But I was very psychological at it.
Right.
And so I would, because I hadn't heard from him, right? So I hadn't heard, and I didn't want to be aggressive, because goodness knows I have been labeled aggressive by men constantly. But what I have learned about myself is I'm assertive. I'm not aggressive. And what a beautiful thing. What grace, because I had a negative mind frame towards myself with being aggressive. But I was in that learning point, and I didn't know. And so I would message a guy on accident, purposely, and say, yes, I'd love to do that with you Friday night. So now this guy's wondering, what the hell is she talking about? What is she doing Friday night? To which he'd message me. He's like, oh, did you mean that for me? I was like, oops, no, so sorry. So now, right? Okay.
Manipulator.
Right? Okay, let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah, exactly. Pause and let's discuss.
Yes, because, okay, so did I hurt anybody? I didn't hurt anybody in there.
No.
No. However.
That's true.
Yes. However, was that an assertive way to get a need met?
It was a deceptive way.
Yes. And it was also passive aggressive.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you look back, I'm being gentle with myself because it's kind of funny, right? Like, I wasn't hurting him. I didn't do anything. But what was, you go back to, why did I do that? Why
it was
did
a need that you had. It's an itch to scratch. That's what it is. But you can't do it yourself. But you can't make somebody else do it until you kind of throw the hook out there and reel it in the way that you know you're going to get a response in the way that you know you're going to get it. Yeah. It's a controlling mechanism to manipulate somebody to give you what you want, how you want it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and going back to that unmet need, my unmet need was connection.
Right.
And so kind of being gentle with yourself, it was silly. Do I do that anymore?
It worked.
It did work, but it didn't get me the end result of the connection I really needed. No. Although, you know, the guy would text me, but, you know, I mean, there's just this lot of space to learn. But again, it's like when you can be honest with yourself about your behavior, that's also when you can start learning on how to move forward and how to be like present, how to just really understand ourselves. And it helps us to understand other people because giving yourself that grace, that Gabor Mate talks about compassionate inquiry, which is healing from your own pain and being compassionate about it. So I gave myself compassion looking at that. And yeah, it was funny in class because I would tell them that. And I would give them an example though, because like, it's okay. It doesn't make it like I didn't hurt anybody, but it doesn't mean that I was clear in my intention. And so the goal is really like,
and that's not being authentic.
Exactly. Well, I was authentic in what I was doing, but I wasn't getting my need met in the way that would be assertive is what I'm trying to say. I mean, you know, it's a game playing, right?
Right.
And we say we don't want to play games in the dating world, but we know that people play games, but I mean, are they playing games or are they just repeating the pattern of familiarity in their own life?
Good question.
Yep, that was a pattern, right? Like I was trying to come up with a solution. And again, it was just a moment for me to take a look within. So have you ever had anything like that? I mean, you don't have to share. I was just like curious, like I just threw myself under the bus, but you don't have to. It's all good.
No, that's something to consider.
Yeah, it is. So anybody out there who is taking notes on this, if you want to move forward in your life, just do that. Look within a little bit and have compassion for yourself, number one, and just be curious about your behavior because any behavior that you're doing has an unmet need if it's a challenging behavior, right? It's just where it is at. So if you like this content, please subscribe, hit that subscribe button. I'm getting better with this. Follow me on our journey and, you know, let's just grow together.
Cheers to that.
Have a good day.
Bye.